welcome back to the channel, guys, and welcome to Scarface from 1983. Starting off with Fidel Castro, leader of Cuba, not wanting certain people in Cuba and want them to go away for good. So the screenplay was written by Oliver Stone, director of Wall Street, and directed by Brian De Palma. Now inside the immigration office, as we now meet Tony Montana, a Cuban refugee. Tony Montana himself, played by Al Pacino, as he is interviewed, one of the questions being how he learned to speak English, as he watched Humphrey Bogart and James Cagney movies growing up. And the rest continues with Tony telling the guys that both his mom and dad are dead, which is a lie. And now some other questions.
No. Been in a mental hospital? Oh yeah, and they both coming over.
And even the scar on his face, well, why do you think the movie's called Scarface, right? And also the tattoo on his hand, which a lot of the other guys that came with Tony from Cuba. But Tony now admits he's been to jail and that's how he got the tattoo. And the guards are ready to take him out of here. Now complain about the communism in Cuba, which is another reason why he got the tattoo. He tries to convince the border guy here to let him enter the United States, but
Told me I was in sanitation.
I told you to tell him you was in a sanitarium, not sanitation.
And we now meet Tony's best friend, Manny Rivera, played by Stephen Bauer. So 1 month passes by, looks like Los Angeles, and Manny walking to Tony, who's playing basketball right now, since Manny has good news for Tony. The two will be out of Los Angeles in 30 days and have their green cards by then, and will have work in Miami. And their first job is about an Emilio Rebenga, who the two know from Cuba, a communist. And the two now see Emilio Rebenga, played by Roberto Contreras, and the two watch him and fast forward to Miami. And we see angry Cubans trying to tear down the fence, and things get intense as Rebenga tries to run away as Manny follows him. And Tony stabs Rebenga to death, one of the communists that is supposed to be killed, which is their first job. And now the two are getting their green cards and made it to Miami, as Tony and Manny have now gained employment working at a small restaurant here. And it's just part-time work for now, since Manny's contact hasn't even showed up yet and hasn't brought the actual job to the two yet. And this is pissing Tony off. But the two wait for now as they watch the club across the street, and the restaurant owner's back to tell them someone's here to see them in the car. And the two meet the guys who will give them a job, the main one being Omar Suarez, played by F. Murray Abraham, who's pretending to be Cuban or Mexican or Hispanic here for the movie, and Waldo Rojas there too. So yeah, a lot of the actors in this movie aren't exactly Hispanic, but they try to sound Hispanic or Cuban, like Al Pacino, for example. And their first job is to unload a boat for $500 a night for each Tony and Manny, which they will get each. And Tony thinks that's too low since Omar looks drunk here.
Then why didn't you, man? Don't be calling me no fucking dishwasher. If I kick your fucking monkey ass all over.
You're not gonna do that to nobody.
And Tony insults Omar and almost takes out his gun on him, and to prove Tony how tough he is, Omar gives him a different job for now to grab drugs from the Colombians and will get $5,000. And Tony agrees to the job and has no choice but to do it since he hates Colombians.
Wash it yourself, right?
Could you?
I retired.
What the fuck you gonna do then now?
That was funny. So they make it to the drug exchange location and park outside here. And Tony says he'll be back in 15 minutes. And now they go up to room 9. And if you played Grand Theft Auto Vice City, that game has a location to represent the rest of the scene, which will happen going on with the chainsaw. And now opens up Hector here, played by Al Israel, who's also the drug dealer marked for death, the Steven Seagal movie, and will also come back in another Al Pacino movie called Carlito's Way. Great movie, by the way, Carlito's Way. Now, Tony asks where the drugs are, with Hector responding that's nearby, and Tony responds the same way, the money's nearby too. And I have to admit, Tony started yelling, triggered Hector's guys to invade the drug dealer, as his friend here watching will face those consequences now, shortly with the chainsaw. And now the guns are pointed at Tony and his friend here. Hector takes out the chainsaw and isn't afraid to use it. So meanwhile, Manny almost grabbing the girl's ass here, thinking he's got a shot with her. And now we hear the chainsaw and cuts up his friend, which I'll skip. And Manny and the other guy are ready to go inside now to check on their two friends. So Manny saves the day here as he shoots most of the guys down, and Hector tries to escape as he also got shot. And there's a yayo they have to deliver to Omar Suarez. So no money was actually spent here, which is great. And Tony kills Hector. So Tony got away with the money, which was never spent, and the yayo. And with all these witnesses watching, the three escape as Tony calls up Omar Suarez. Tony's got both the money and the yayo and will deliver both personally to Frank Lopez. And Tony and Manny have made it to this hotel, which belongs to Frank Lopez. And we now meet Frank Lopez himself, played by Robert Loggia, who voice acted in Grand Theft Auto 3 as well. Most of all the songs played in this movie, or all the songs played in this movie, are featured on a radio station in that video game, Grand Theft Auto 3. So Frank is appreciative to both the drug job and the killing of Emilio Rabanga. Well, now you know who, asked Tony and Manny to do the job. And shows him the yayo since it cost Tony's friend's life. And the guy that got chainsawed. Now the three sit down with their drinks as they wait for Elvira. And now here comes Elvira Hancock, played by Michelle Pfeiffer, and Tony Montana is already in love.
Hit the wall. I ran out of bullets like an asshole. And when I'm standing there changing the clip, a little motherfucker like
with the boss's girl. And Frank Lopez suggests the Babylon Club for dinner, since Elvira making this remark.
You know, Frank, if anyone ever wanted to assassinate you, you wouldn't be too hard to find.
Assassinate me.
And they've made it to the Babylon Club, and if you've played Grand Theft Auto Vice City, that game has a parody of this club called the Malibu Club. Yeah, great times video games once were. Now pointing out some people in the club to Tony, like El Gordo over there, and even spending $550 on wine. What the hell? Just for grapes, Lopez, and wants Tony to join him full time to work with Omar here. Now she asks Tony Montana to dance, and this is his moment. But it's not working for Tony since she's dancing far from him, and she has no interest in Tony Montana since he tries to be friendly here and calls him some names.
Desperate, starved and begging for it on a desert island. You'd be the last thing I'd ever fuck.
Whoa, I've actually seen worse, but that's nothing. And she told him, that's nothing, I've seen worse. But she told him, but Tony being dumb, thinking she's in love with him, with Manny all drunk as they drive home. And Manny tells him to not screw around with Elvira since that's Frank Lopez's lady and Tony wants more out of life. 3 months go by as Tony and Manny are at the beach now enjoying themselves and Tony wanting more out of his time in Miami. And the two try talking to this girl and doesn't end well, and Manny all horny shaking his tongue and tries it on the girl here and he gets slapped in the face. And with Tony knowing that would happen and the main thing to focus on is money and power first so the two can get laid. But that partially works for them. So next scene, they're here to pick up Elvira since Frank told the two to pick her up and won't ride in that car since it's ugly to her. And to make her sit, Tony actually takes his time to get her a car, but he's actually getting it for himself. But they leave Manny to it since the whole Frank thing never happened. It was all a lie so Tony can get with Elvira. All fake as Tony and Elvira walk to the Cadillac and to sniff cocaine and even tries to kiss her.
No. Playtime is over, okay?
So next scene, Tony heads to his home here and meets up with his mother, played by Miriam Colin, Mama Montana, and his sister Gina, played by Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio. He even brings Gina some presents and now sits down telling Tony about her getting a cosmetology license, as well as Mama Montana still working in the sewing factory. It announces the two don't have to work ever again since he was in prison before all this, and Mama Montana doesn't want his money since she knows his criminal past tells him to get out of here. And yes, Tony lied at the immigration office that both his mom and dad are dead since their dad left at an early age as Gina runs out to hug her brother Tony, and he gives her the money as Manny is watching from the car.
She's good. How come you... Hey!
Stay away from her.
Yeah, that's going to change soon though. So we now make it to Bolivia, and Omar Suarez again is there too, walking with Alejandro Sosa, played by Paul Shinar, as he is looking for someone to be his buyer and business partner in the cocaine operation in the United States. Preferably Frank Lopez, but he can't make it here, so you see Sosa's drug empire in the background there. And Sosa sits down with the two as they discuss how much Frank Lopez should buy and the rest to the Colombians. Now Alejandro Sosa gets a phone call, as the butler here points it out, Alberto, played by Mark Margolis. And Omar and Tony are bickering as Sosa knows something about one of them.
You need to watch my back. Watch my back.
Better than your friend, let me tell you.
Funny. And Omar Suarez suggesting the amount of keys that Frank Lopez should buy to Sosa, or from Sosa, as soon as he gets back to Miami, and will have Omar escorted back to his personal chopper by Alberto. And Sosa actually got that call for his own enlightenment that Omar Suarez used to be a police informer that got 2 drug kingpins jailed for life, 2 well-known ones too. Well, now you know why he kept Tony here and questions why him if he's the same as Omar Suarez, and gives him a speech here to Sosa. Tony does. And Sosa thinks why Frank Lopez even had Omar Suarez working for him too. So Sosa says to not fuck with him as Tony heads to Miami at Lopez Motors, pissed off that he made a high amount deal of $18 million. And Tony says he made a good deal, and Lopez concerned about the Diaz brothers and Gaspar Gomez, whoever they are, and tells him to just trust Tony. So yeah, Robert Loggia doesn't really sound Cuban here. You can hear his real voice slipping out too. Same thing with Al Pacino. Maybe it's just me who notices that. And Tony mentions it's time for them to expand and think big. And if you played Grand Theft Auto Vice City, the scenery here is poured into that game, exact same. But Lopez says Sosa is a piece of shit and made a fool out of Tony.
Fuck Gaspar Gomez and fuck the fucking Diaz brothers. Fuck them all.
Lopez has got a point here. Tony quickly believing it and even warns him to fly straight and to not get cocky. So next thing we see Elvira again sunbathing, and he's here to see her even after knowing that Tony and Frank Lopez aren't working together anymore. And even asks her if she likes kids, and she says sure, and Tony has something to tell her.
I want you to marry me. I want you to be the mother of my children.
She's still worried about Frank, and Tony tells her to think about it. And Tony has made it back to the Babylon Club again with Manny and sees his sister Gina dancing with one of the drug kingpin's guys that he doesn't know. One of his drug competitions guys, and it's boiling Tony's brain. And now Tony meets with Mel Bernstein of the Narcotics Division, played by Harris Yulin, who died this year in 2025. And Bernstein knows he killed Emilio Rebenga and Hector the drug dealer at the motel, and Tony telling Manny to keep an eye on Gina. And he tells Tony the amount of drugs that are being shipped here to Miami, as he also knows about his association with Alejandro Sosa too. And somehow he's going to help Tony get rid of his competition. I don't know why and how.
Somebody get a drink.
Drinking milk at a club? Really? And Tony questions why he should even trust Bernstein and tells he has nothing to worry about. Even Bernstein requests Tony tickets to England for vacation with his wife. Now, Frank Lopez walking in with Elvira, and Tony rushes to her and asks if she made a choice about his marriage proposal. And here comes Frank Lopez telling Tony Montana to get his own girl, disobeying his orders. And Frank Lopez leaves as well, as Elvira runs back to him. It's very obvious Lopez put Mel Bernstein on Tony Montana's back, since who else would know about Rebenga and Hector's killings, and Tony's still boiling up seeing Gina going to the bathroom with that guy. Now it's just too far, and Tony runs after the two. And Tony kicking the guy out and pushing Gina out too, since he's pissed off. He even slaps Gina because she wants to do whatever she wants and runs out pissed off. And we see this comedian telling some jokes with Tony thinking to himself now. And half the movie's done now. And people loving the jokes, and we see these two not enjoying anything here and are just waiting since these two have machine guns. And Manny driving Gina back home since Tony's annoying her. Here comes the other comedian of the hour, Octavio. And Manny telling Gina she should be around respectable men that aren't drug dealers or gangsters.
What about
a
you?
lawyer. What are you talking about?
Why don't you take me out?
So Manny was excited early about Gina, but not anymore. But she's more excited about him now. But back at the Babylon Club, as Tony looks like he's tired out of his mind, and these two have their guns ready in place. So the light killed the guys as Tony shot the two on their legs. So Manny's with one of his girls right now, which I'll skip since she's completely naked. And Tony wants him to come over to Lopez Motors, since these two guys were sent by Frank Lopez, the two that shot up the Babylon Club. and to tell this guy in the Hawaiian shirt to call up Lopez exactly at 3 a.m. Tony and Manny have made it to Lopez Motors and walks in to see Frank Lopez having fun. And Mel Bernstein is there too, as Tony surprises the two. And Frank Lopez acting like he knows nothing about Tony getting injured with the gun pointed at him. And even calls him the Yiddish word for pig, like Frank mentioned at the Babylon Club when El Gordo was there. And the truth finally comes out that it was Frank who sent those two shooters at the Babylon Club, and he even offers him $10 million. And even offers him Elvira too. Now sits next to Mel now, and he was just there to get tickets for his wife to go to England. Okay. And kills Mel Bernstein since he's useless, because he knows everything now.
Shoot that piece of chip. No. So long, Mel. Have a good breath. Fuck you!
So Ernie here, played by Arnaldo Santana, now will work for Tony Montana since his contract with Frank Lopez has expired, if you understand what I mean. And this is where Tony Montana takes over all operations like you would see in Grand Theft Auto Vice City. And Tony now waking up Elvira to tell her to pack up her things and to leave. And Tony now outside seeing this blimp that says, "The world is yours," which is the title of the actual Scarface video game from the 2000s decade. Scarface, The World Is Yours, video game I still gotta find. Now on to big things with Tony Montana taking over all of Frank Lopez's businesses, and with the song playing, the Push It to the Limit song, the motivational song. And even got Gina her own beauty salon just like she wanted, Elvira acting like she's super excited, and Manny wondering how he will tell Tony he's sleeping with his sister now. And now bringing in more money to the bank, and even Tony marrying Elvira Hancock behind the very mansion he owns for the rest of the movie. Also parodied for Grand Theft Auto Vice City. So marrying Elvira is a terrible choice, by the way. But she's doing it since Frank Lopez is dead, so what else can she do? And even shows the wedding crowd his pet tiger tied to the tree, as well as shopping for Gina and Elvira, sniffing coke, thinking that she's made a mistake marrying Tony Montana. But the next scene, Tony and Manny are having a meeting with Jerry the banker, played by Dennis Holohan. And Jerry has a problem with Tony giving him too much money. Those bags of cash he was bringing in during the Push It to the Limit scene. So money can be either too little or too much, but never enough. But I'm going off topic here since Jerry gets too much cash from Tony to even rinse it out. But the IRS won't like this unless Jerry raises the interest rates on his money.
That prick.
So Jerry leaves and wants Tony to continue to be his customer. And Manny suggests a Jewish banker named Saddlebaum that can do it better since Tony doesn't trust anyone. And Tony notices on the camera monitors that a cable truck has been here for 3 days, changing cables, and Manny notices now, he tells him, but Tony suspects it could be the Diaz brothers after him, and complains to Manny that he's got an attitude, and tells him the ambition is gone too since they've got everything that they wanted, out of life. The mansion, the cars, the money, the clothes, Elvira, and Manny having Gina by his side. So Tony is in his very large bathroom as he's now watching an ad of his, changes the channel and some jokes they can't play. And Elvira questioning Tony why he keeps saying the word fuck all the time and always talking about money, and brings up Frank Lopez, never spoke about money that much, it just came to him. And Tony knows she's bored and should get a job to kill that boredom in her life.
Anything beats lying around all day waiting for me to fuck you, I'll tell you that.
Don't toot your horn, honey. You're not that good.
What the hell, man? Whoa. And Manny has to leave since he's got a date, and the whole Saddlebaum deal has been set up. And wants Manny to stay out of this since Manny likes girls more than money, according to Tony. So far, yeah, it looks like that.
Asshole, man. Come here, give me a kiss. Come here. Hey, fuck you, man!
The next scene, more cash being counted and clean, and this guy here talking about working in movies, that he got the chance to meet Marlon Brando and even met Paul Newman. And Tony's there too. And the guy counting the money writes up a check for Montana Realty. And Saddlebaum is the guy who's counting, and so much has passed by that everyone is tired when this happens.
You up and take a leak.
Get him up! Get your hands up! Get your hands against the wall, turn around.
You're not kidding.
Well, what do you know? Saddlebaum was a cop the entire time undercover. He points out at the wall clock that there was a camera there watching the whole time, and Tony was changing dollar bills. That's why he got caught, and tells Saddlebaum to call up his lawyer. and will get him out of this mess. And Tony pretty much lost his freedom with this newspaper headline and sits down with his lawyer George Sheffield, played by Michael Eldridge, who says Tony will go to jail for a minimum of 3 to 5 years now. And Tony's pissed off that he doesn't want to go back to jail since his alibi doesn't work. Alright, the next scene, Tony's back to see Alejandro Sosa again in Bolivia, meets up with 4 official guys, and Sosa tells Tony that he knows Tony's got tax troubles and these guys help him clear that up. But Tony moves on right away and shows him the real problem after showing this interview about the flow of cocaine shown in the streets of the US. And this General Cucumber shows up on screen that he bought a huge home with that money being from cocaine sales, as well as Alejandro now showing up associated with that, and now that he's one of the big drug dealers part of this flow of cocaine. And the one who gave the interview will report this everywhere else in major countries, who is part of the United Nations, this guy. And Alberto, back there from earlier, can help out with this as he needs guidance in the United States since he can't speak English, right? So that they can kill the United Nations guy from doing those other interviews about Alejandro Sosa. So next scene, back in Miami with the 3 having dinner, and Tony has to go to New York and tells Manny to watch the businesses and sees Elvira acting snotty again and pissed off at Manny for the whole saddle bomb setup, and tells Elvira that she can't give him any children and that she's been polluted, and she splashes wine at Tony Montana.
You got a bag for a belly. You got tits. You need a bra.
And she's acting like this since she's all coked up and leaves Tony Montana for good now. And Tony's also drunk as well and can't even get up and just walks out saying the word bad guy a lot. And the next scene, we are in New York for that job that Alejandro told Tony to do. And this guy comes out of the car, which is the same guy who was in the interview, played at Sosa's, the United Nations guy, by himself, while Tony Montana watches from the car far away and sees Alberto, Alejandro's butler, going underneath the United Nations guy's car and places the bomb. And the next morning, Tony calling in Manny in Miami to see if Elvira called back, but didn't. And Tony goes back to the car, and Alberto noticing the United Nations guy is coming out of his hotel now in the next scene. And the United Nations guy gets into his car and turns around to the hotel, as Alberto says in Spanish, to stay 30 meters away so that he can blow up the car from when they follow him around. And Tony sees that the United Nations guy...
The fuck is that? Hey, come here. You told me she took the kids in the other car.
That the United Nations guy has his wife and children with him too there. And Tony says in Spanish to let the wife and children go and just kill the guy only. The United Nations guy only. But Alberto's loyalty overpowers Tony's replies that he wants to kill the whole family because Sosa told them so. And Tony losing trace of the car on purpose.
You die, motherfucker!
So Tony kills Alberto and lets the United Nations guy go with his family because he cares more for the children, and all this will end up getting Tony Montana in trouble later on. And now Tony is at the phone booth and calls in Nick, wondering where Manny went. And Nick says he's been gone for a few days, and Gina is also gone too since Mama Montana called in. And no call back from Elvira, and why would she call back? She got what she needed. And Tony Montana's back at his mansion in Miami, and still no sign of Gina since he calls back Mama Montana that he knows Gina is gone and to sniff more cocaine. And now Alejandro Sosa back to tell Tony on the phone that the United Nations guy made it on time to announce his speech.
Oh, you fucking little monkey, not to fuck me! Hey, who the fuck do you think you're talking to, huh? You wanna fuck me?
That he yells back even after making a promise to not fuck with Alejandro Sosa, and makes up a story that Alberto is being an idiot, so therefore the job couldn't be done. In the next scene, Tony's back at Mama Montana's house telling him that Gina ran away from home and that a car picked her up and left off in it. And she left in it. And now Tony leaves after Mama Montana tells him that it's his fault that Gina became this way. And back in the car, as Ernie tells Tony still no sign of Manny. Well, you'll see why now.
We got married just yesterday. We were gonna surprise you.
So Manny wanted to surprise Tony that he married Gina, his sister, and Tony, all coked up, killed him out of impulse. And Ernie bringing Gina out as they have to head back to the Montana mansion. And we see these spies invading Tony's yard since we are in the final 15 minutes of the movie. And Gina acting all crazy after seeing Manny getting killed. her newlywed husband, and Chi-Chi and Ernie are back to tell him that Gina is all cooled down and Tony is ready for war against Alejandro Sosa for not killing the United Nations guy. And at this point, it looks just like Grand Theft Auto Vice City with the video footage playing in the monitors behind Tony and Ernie and Nick, keeping an eye
Tony.
And Tony can't even think straight right now since Tony's nose can't handle any more cocaine. Like the cocaine sniffing is done for the day. And now Ernie gets killed by Sosa's guys or assassins invading the mansion as Tony gets up to hear things. And here comes Gina, and she's so high and is naked at this point. You know, she's like promoting incest behavior now since Tony can't stand his sister being touched by anyone else and starts to shoot at him. And I'll skip this scene because, you know, she's naked. And breaks in one of Alejandro's guys and shoots Gina Montana, and Tony pushes him out and shoots the shooter. And Nick warns Tony that Sosa's guys are everywhere, and now he loves Manny and wants him to come back since, you know, she's dead. And Chi-Chi wanted to come into the office and gets killed, trying to warn Tony, and it's only Tony Montana left as Sosa's guys have invaded the entire mansion. And Tony's saying hello to my little friend now. He manages to shoot most of the guys, and Tony halfway shot up, and from behind comes the skilled shooter we've been seeing so far with the sunglasses. And here it goes. And there goes Tony Montana with "The world is yours" slogan there on the statue, and with this message saying that this film is dedicated to, and with this message at the end saying that this film is dedicated to Howard Hawks and Ben Hecht. And if you didn't know, Howard Hawks is that director who directed the original movie, Scarface, from 1932, since this version is a whole rewritten remake. But in the 1932 version, the protagonist is named Tony Camonte, played by Paul Muni, and he's actually Italian in that movie, and this time Tony Montana, the rewritten version, is Cuban. But this version is much more powerful, one of the greatest remakes of all time. And that is Scarface from 1983, absolutely fantastic. Worth the near 3 hours, and I've spoken enough, and I'll see you next time in another episode. Take care, see you soon, and watch away, and check out Scarface, this one. I mean, we've all seen this one, and check out the one from 1932. Take care.